When MAS*H premiered in 1972, no one could have predicted that a half-hour comedy set in a Korean war field hospital would become one of the most profound and enduring shows in television history. What began as a modest adaptation of a 1970 war satire film soon grew into something far bigger, a mirror reflecting the absurdity of war, the fragility of life, and the bittersweet humor people cling to when surrounded by chaos. But behind the laughter, the awards, and the record-breaking ratings, the actors who brought these beloved characters to life faced their own battles. Some fought against creative frustration, others against exhaustion, and a few simply couldn't bear the emotional weight anymore. The departures that followed didn't just alter the show, they redefined what television storytelling could be. In the early years, the set of MASH was chaotic in all the right ways. A mix of comedy writers and dramatic instincts made the show unpredictable and alive. But the actors quickly realized that MASH wasn't just another sitcom. There was no laugh track in the operating room scenes, and the jokes didn't always land because they weren't supposed to. MAS*H asked its audience to feel something, not just laugh. It became clear that this show was going to change television and the people making it. McLean Stevenson, who played the warm and bumbling Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, was one of the first to feel the strain. Stevenson was funny, charming, and deeply respected by the cast, but he wanted more. Watching Alan Alda's Hawkeye Pierce become the show's moral and comedic center left him restless. Stevenson dreamed of being the leading man, not the lovable second in command. By the third season, his frustration had reached a breaking point. He asked to be released from his contract, hoping to find the stardom he believed he'd earned. The writers agreed, but not without a parting gift that would shake television forever. When the episode Abyssinia Henry aired in 1975, it seemed like just another farewell. Henry Blake had received his long-awaited discharge papers, and the entire camp threw him a bittersweet goodbye party. There were hugs, laughter, and tears as Henry promised to see everyone again. But then came the final scene, one that no one, not even most of the cast, saw coming. In the middle of a routine surgery, Radar entered the operating room, his face pale. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan, he said quietly. There were no survivors. For a few seconds, silence hung over the set. The actors froze, and even the studio audience, expecting a laugh, was stunned. It was one of the first times a major TV character was killed off unexpectedly, and it hit viewers like a gut punch. The nation mourned a fictional man as though he were real. Stevenson later admitted he watched the episode at home and cried. His departure was meant to be a step toward greater fame, but instead it became a haunting reminder of what he left behind. His post-MAS*H projects never found the same spark, and the role that made him famous also defined him forever. If Stevenson's exit shocked viewers, Wayne Rogers's departure the following year blindsided Hollywood itself. Rogers, who played Trapper John McIntyre, had signed onto MAS*H thinking it would be a two-man comedy act, him and Alan Alda trading jokes and saving lives. But as the series evolved, it became clear that Hawkeye was the heart of the show. Trapper's sharp wit and charm were undeniable, but the script slowly shifted toward Alda's moral storytelling. Rogers felt sidelined, and his growing frustration mirrored Stevenson's. When the fourth season began filming, Rogers simply didn't show up. There was no big farewell, no emotional send-off. He was gone. Because he had never signed a binding contract, just a handshake deal, CBS couldn't force him back. It was one of the most audacious moves in television history. The producers, caught off guard, scrambled to write in a new character, B.J. Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell. Surprisingly, B.J. brought a quieter, more reflective energy that deepened the show's tone. Still, the loss of Trapper John marked the end of MAS*H's lighter buddy comedy era. Rogers would go on to become a successful investor and commentator, but fans never forgot the easy chemistry between Trapper and Hawkeye that once defined the series. Then there was Gary Berghoff, the gentle soul behind Radar O'Reilly. More than any other character, Radar embodied the innocence that balanced the show's darkness. His wide-eyed optimism, his love for animals, and his almost supernatural ability to anticipate the needs of his commanding officers made him unforgettable. But behind that soft-spoken charm, Berghoff was struggling. Years of filming under grueling schedules had taken a toll on his personal life, and he longed to spend time with his family. The same sensitivity that made Radar so believable also made Berghoff vulnerable to the emotional strain of playing him. Each goodbye, each surgical tragedy, seemed to weigh heavier on him. When he decided to leave, the writers crafted one of the most poignant farewells in television history. In the episode Goodbye, Radar, he receives news that his Uncle Ed has died, and he's granted a hardship discharge to return home. The scene where Radar quietly walks through camp one last time, pausing to take in the sounds of the place he called home, is haunting. As he says his silent goodbyes, the audience feels the same emptiness the characters do. It was one of those rare TV moments that transcended fiction, where the emotions on screen were real, because the actors were truly saying farewell to a friend. Berghoff later spoke candidly about his departure, admitting that leaving MAS*H felt like losing part of himself. Yet, he also said he had no regrets. For a man who spent years pretending to send others home, finally getting to go home himself was a fitting ending. While Radar's farewell tugged at viewers' hearts, Larry Linville's departure cut deeper into the show's identity. As Major Frank Burns, Linville had perfected the role of the self-important, jealous antagonist, a man both pitiful and detestable. But over time, even Linville began to feel trapped by the caricature. Burns had no growth, no redemption, and no humanity left to explore. By season 5, Linville knew he'd done everything he could with the role. Rather than let it stagnate, he chose to walk away. His exit marked the end of the show's original comedic tension between good and evil. The producers replaced him with David Ogden Stiers as Charles Emerson Winchester III, a pompous but intelligent foil whose dignity and complexity brought a new dynamic to the 4077th. Linville's decision, though risky, allowed the series to evolve beyond slapstick and into something deeper. David Ogden Stiers, for his part, brought an entirely new sophistication to MAS*H. His Boston accent, refined wit, and hidden vulnerability turned Winchester into one of television's most layered supporting characters. But even he, after 6 seasons, felt the gravitational pull of creative restlessness. Stiers, a classically trained actor and musician, wanted to explore roles that challenged him in new ways. By the time the show approached its final seasons, he too began to feel it was time to move on. His departure wasn't bitter, it was natural. The show had run its course, and the war, both literal and metaphorical, had to end sometime. Then there was Loretta Swit, Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. In the beginning, she was written as the stereotypical strict nurse, part disciplinarian, part romantic foil. But Swit refused to let her character stay one-dimensional. She fought for depth, for independence, and for respect, both for Margaret and for herself as a performer. As the years went by, Margaret transformed from comic relief into a complex, self-possessed woman who demanded to be seen as more than the butt of a joke. Swit's determination mirrored Margaret's own, resilient, compassionate, and unwilling to be dismissed. She nearly left several times for other projects, but her bond with the character kept her rooted until the very end. By the late 1970s, MASH had shifted dramatically from its origins. What once was a sharp, chaotic comedy about doctors joking through despair had become a human drama with touches of humor. The series grew quieter, more contemplative, and more morally charged, largely because of Alan Alda's influence as both lead actor and creative voice. Some cast members admired his vision, others quietly resented the imbalance it created. Yet, there's no denying that Alda's direction gave the show its soul. Under his influence, MASH turned into something much bigger than a sitcom. It became a statement about the cost of war, the endurance of friendship, and the fragile beauty of compassion in the face of madness. As the final seasons approached, the departures had transformed MAS*H into a different kind of story. It was no longer about hijinks in the swamp or absurd pranks on the officers. It was about resilience, loss, and the small victories that keep people human when the world around them collapses. The absence of characters like Henry, Trapper, and Radar was deeply felt, yet their ghosts lingered in every frame. The 4077th became a living memory, a place that changed faces, but never lost its heart. When the finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, aired in 1983, over 100 million people watched. For 2.5 hours, America said goodbye to a show that had defined an era. The characters wept, the audience wept, and the screen faded to black as a helicopter lifted off, revealing the word goodbye spelled out in stones below. It was more than an ending. It was closure for every loss the show had carried for 11 years. Each actor who had left, willingly or not, had contributed a piece of themselves to that final moment. Without their departures, MAS*H might never have found its emotional gravity. The loss became part of the legacy. Looking back, it's almost poetic how the show mirrored life itself. People come and go, sometimes abruptly, sometimes gracefully, and the world keeps turning. MAS*H wasn't just about the Korean War, it was about the wars we fight inside ourselves. McLean Stevenson chased the spotlight and found regret. Wayne Rogers walked away from fame to find freedom. Gary Berghoff left the camp to rediscover his family. Larry Linville let go of a character who no longer grew, while David Ogden Stiers sought new creative ground. Each departure hurt, but each one made the series stronger, more human, more real. What makes MAS*H endure isn't just its humor or its tragedy, it's the authenticity of its evolution. Every goodbye left a scar, but those scars told a story. By the time the choppers stopped flying and the tents were packed away, the show had outgrown its own genre. It had become a lesson in empathy, change, and the quiet heroism of letting go. Decades later, people still watch MAS*H not because of who left, but because of what remained. A profound reminder that even in the darkest places, humanity endures. The laughter, the tears, and the long silences between them, all of it was real, and that's why, long after the last episode faded to black, the legacy of the 4077th still beats strong in the hearts of those who remember.